I'm Rich Lieberman. This is the Rich Lieberman Media Pulse. And right now, I want to talk about the culture clash and all we have in front of us and beyond us, and some of the things that we look upon and we glance at, and then we shake our heads in disgust. But at the same time, we move on with our lives and we try to make sense, sometimes even the senseless. So, like all of you, many of you, I was watching the horrific shit taking place in Minneapolis, the latest dateline of the craziness called America. I hate to be an observation of no shit, Sherlock, but that's what it is. It's the ever increasingly benign, imagined way which we react to these shootings that leave people dying. Kids, doesn't matter. Old people, it just happens now with so much regularity that it's beyond irregular and so forth. And we've become accustomed to it. It's part of our culture now. It is. It's part of the radio, television, streaming, all together blood alley, so to speak, that we become so numb to, so benign to, that we just kind of express our version of outrage. And then the very next day, we're sipping coffee and talking about shit like bullshit, like, Taylor Swift getting engaged to a football player, and us, well, at least some of us, reacting in glee, professing this amazement, this sort of almost you can't make it up bullshit. It's out there glee. And I bring up Taylor Swift because I love the item that was broadcast of this CBS News White House correspondent who got the message about Taylor Swift on her Instagram. Makes sense. And was caught reacting as if the Red Sea had parted, and she showed this kind of jovial exclamation of glee. It was almost as if it was written by, like, Oliver Stone, about to make his next movie about violence and the situation taking place. You take that Taylor Swift bullshit, and look, nobody is condemning Taylor Swift here. God forbid. I mean, she's the second coming. Bigger, probably bigger. But in truth and in all seriousness, nobody's getting on Taylor Swift or her future ex-husband or whatever. I'm being a little cynical. But juxtapose that with the very, very next day, not even a 24 hours, you have that phenomena. And you have Minneapolis at the Catholic school where the little kids and the old elderly people, mostly little kids, in the church celebrating their first few days in school, praying. And then you have the madman or woman, whatever the hell he is. I think he's a man, but it doesn't really matter. Coming in. And he didn't even make it in. He shot through the windows with his 8 gazillion weapons of mass destruction. That's really the weapons of mass destruction. And he's shooting and killing. And later we discover that he was some nut, that he professed to have issues with his life, and that he chose to take it out on some innocent little kids. And of course, we have the usual reaction, which we usually do the outrage, the thoughts and prayers, the images of these terrified parents and adults running through the streets of South Minneapolis, which had only just semi-recovered from a day earlier where another gun situation took place. And I'm not going to go on this rant here and talk about political things like gun control and the availability of guns and the fact that madmen and people who were once thought to be not really fucked up have become fucked up because of whatever reasons, whether it's their family, whether it's their own situation with friends that they used to have friends, that they don't have friends, but they choose to go off into their own galaxy and become crazy and become articulate leaders of evil. And they do and perpetrate what they do. And then we have the ensuing mayhem of violence and blood and of little kids, 10-year-olds becoming eyewitnesses and going on various cable shows and so forth, and to describe how they happened to see the mayhem and all that. Who could forget that little kid, the little 10-year-old? Maybe, again, something purely evil taking place, but then you have this 10-year-old kid describing what had happened and what was about to hit in that little church in Minneapolis. And I said to somebody, I said, they can run a CNN can, and I'm not just saying CNN to be CNN-ish here, anti-CNN, because they all do this, but they all have the terrified parents running and the people crying and the little kids and the cops all over the place with the cars and the police barricades and the yellow tape and all that. And we have all the mayhem, and they run these loops, these visual loops that, for all intents and purposes, they don't have to run new loops. They can just run these loops and put them over any kind of tragedy that has taken place and will continue to take place. And yet the outrage, the self-professed thoughts and prayers, it's almost like a formula now. They have it down pat. They go to live reports from the pick your destination, pick your dateline, whether it's Virginia Tech or Columbine or Boston or Minneapolis, San Antonio, Dallas. It's kind of a geographical symmetry, folks. These mass killings, these mass, shall we say, mass entertainments for the cable networks that cover these things. I had to laugh in sarcastic reverence. They show Anderson Cooper. He comes on the air on Wednesday discussing the horrific situation, the events that took place with regards to the killer, the shooter. Don't you love how the media refers to this nut? But then they show this kind of self-importance. We're not going to mention his name. We're not going to give him the dignity. Well, they did. And I have no issues with that. He's dead. He's not going to do any more destruction. He's just the latest villain in this whole long-running series that has no end, really. We'll have another one soon, and then we'll bitch and moan and proclaim outrage. How can they do this? How can our leaders not have any outrage? How can they not do something? We'll have another one. And then, it's like I said, it's an endless kind of an ongoing series. So Anderson Cooper comes on. I like Anderson Cooper. think he does a fairly good job. He's fairly intelligent. Sometimes every now and then I don't agree with him on certain issues, but that's neither here nor there. But he professes this, well, I'm not going to show the guy's face. His colleague beforehand, Miss Burnett, decided that she would show his face and even have one of CNN's pundits, which talked about this whole thing, the latest from this. I guess he was a military former FBI analyst who does a lot of these types of things. His name is John Miller. He's now, and he's on like a regular now. These things happen with so much frequency that they put him on, and he talks about it and they ask for his analysis. Like, what the fuck analysis do you need? It's right here. We have another school shooting or a supermarket shooting, that kind of a thing, but it's somewhat funny. Anyway, so Cooper says really righteously that he's not going to show any kind of picture of the guy, nor is he going to say his name. That's fine. Okay. Meanwhile, after about 7 minutes of interviews with people on the scene, their own reporter, a flashback to the kids' interviews, and then again the loop, the visual narrative that shows a bunch of people who are crapped out and scared beyond you know what. They go away from the story and him saying, I'm not going to dignify this guy. It would be, we're not going to let some infamous asshole, basically what he said, to have his name out there, his image, even though he's dead. They proceed then to go run promos, CNN, of their various content outliers, international and national. So instead of staying with this story and treating it like it should be treated in terms of the out and out deviousness, the outer and inner absolute horrificness of this story, like mostly all of them, CNN goes away and starts running promos with commercials and other things, and the endless drug commercials and all that. Promos, it's like an entertainment show. That's what it's become. And the media doesn't give a damn about it anymore. At least that's what we call the regular media, the so-called media that covers these things and shows these outrage, the look on people's faces. I mentioned I watched CNN, but I tuned it around to MSNBC and Fox. And they all have their bent, right? They all have their own kind of issues. CNN is trying to be neutral and so forth with their various correspondents and in-studio hosts and hostesses. But it's CNN. They do a good job. I'll give them that. They have the coverage is right there. They show all the various horrific things. They try to be, objective, which they're not. Fox is already, not even an hour into this horrific thing, they're already saying that it was an anti-Catholic madman, that experts say there was some kind of an agenda. Well, of course there was an agenda. Who knows? They knew right away. And then, of course, MSNBC is just MSNBC. Nobody watches that channel anymore. But apparently they figured that they're going to do their own sort of, bent and show their own evil ways and so forth about what caused this crazy bastard to go off. Because he was crazy. Because whatever ilk in his life, whatever brain that he had, and that had become infested with shit and his own craziness had overtaken him. And, the rest is history, as they say. But I was talking earlier, you juxtapose this in the whole Taylor Swift phenomenon. Now, look, I just said I have nothing against Taylor Swift. God bless her. She's an industry. She's a city. Hell, she's a country. $1 billion here, $1 billion there. She's got the fairy tale thing. We got a big marriage coming, which, geez, I can hardly wait. But see, folks, in the old days, there used to be a real legit media that would cover actually really legit news. And people would be thrilled to put on a network newscast and see actual news. Nowadays, the media, what we call the electronic media, and that's what it is, has become sort of part and parcel with news people, culture people. I mean, look, was it big news that Taylor Swift announced the fact that she's engaged? No. To some degree, yes. It's a big cultural boom. But the media reacts on this, giving her loads and loads of more PR. Frankly, it's sort of weird. It's not surprising. And it's the same thing they do this with other elements within our life. But it's so embarrassing. It is so beyond a freak of electronic nature that here we are spending all this time on Taylor Swift and gushing reporters at the White House about to talk about legitimate things that affect all of us, that affect our lives, our livelihood, and all that kind of thing. And yet, look what we got. It's crazy. It's almost, can you believe this? How surreal it is. I mentioned it is kind of like an Oliver Stone movie. What was it? What was it? Bastards, or what was it? It was a kind of a, oh God, not Dirty Rotten Bastards, not Inglorious Bastards, but it was something like that. It was just absolutely. Oh, is that Pamela Arnold? Hi, Pamela. You still there? Pamela is a fan who has come aboard, and let's see. Hi, Rich. Pam, you must be there. I hope so. Okay. She's a fan. God bless her. but what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the Oliver Stone, with these crazy movies and all that. But the juxtaposition of it'll come to me, the movie, in a second or two or three or what have you. But all this mayhem, all this blood, literally and figuratively, coming out in Minneapolis, the latest, like I said, the latest locale for another mass shooting, and the juxtaposition of that and what happened in the Taylor Swift announcement that she's getting engaged, complete with, the future ex-husband, the football player, and the $55 million ring. Well, that resonates well within America, right? And the whole analysis, I didn't complain. I registered the fact that here locally we had an alleged news station talk about this in an entire context with some professor of culture at Syracuse. And somehow these two nitwit news anchors, they spent 10 minutes talking about this. Again, folks, I want to be very clear. I'm not anti Taylor Swift, which would be kind of like anathema these days, akin to, expressing outrage against the sun or the blue skies. I'm saying that it presented sort of a visual homage, whether directly or indirectly, of what modern day media has become. And we're forced to witness this and take part in this directly or indirectly. And it's somewhat hysterical, somewhat rather, well, if it weren't so sad, it would be rather, funny. Like, ha ha funny. Excuse me while I grab my favorite drink, water, because my voice is going and I don't want it to go. Wow, that's a background. Look at that. You see that? Look, a backdrop of my lovely TV monitor and me. And now I'm back live with my. Is Pam still there? Hi, Pam. And who else is there? Oh, we have others joining pretty soon. Good. So our culture now is dominated by really useless kind of news and things of that nature where it just is so irresponsible and so ridiculous that, as I just said, you want to laugh in a way. And especially when it comes into contact with real news, such as, again, Minneapolis. But we can just surmise that this is what we've become and all of that. So I'm going to take a break because I want to get some, and I'm going to come right back on here. So don't go away. Pam, you can notify the various people, and we're going to go back into this. I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to come right back. So stay there, be square, and I will be back. Tell everybody Rich Lieberman is going to be back and rant even further. Oh, are we back now again? The director's telling me not to take a station break. All right, so you're watching me live as I sip a very cold. These things have become a fan of their own. They may even have a Twitter X account eventually. And, not that long ago, I wasn't even wearing glasses. But, and then I decided to go en natural with the gruffy, visual enhancement called stubble. So, all right, Pam, you're back here. We got other people coming in. Oh, Pam's got her own kind of a deal. So maybe it's a good time to take a break. I'm here. You're doing great. Nah, you're very kind. I am, but you're still very kind. So I'm going to take like a 2-minute break, okay? That way I could come back, do like a second preamble that will get into the thrust of what I'm saying. So don't leave. Just stay there. Tell everybody, send out your social media posts and let them know that Rich is about to come on. Now, I've just a little bookkeeping here. I know a lot of you watch from the East Coast and the Midwest. And so therefore, obviously, there's a time difference and all that. So I'm trying to do it to where people here can be happy. And you guys can be happy in the Midwest and, of course, the East Coast. So I'm going to rev it up, drink some more water, get my voice back into non-neutral. So stick around. Don't leave. I'll be back in about 5 minutes, okay? So go to the potty, do your business, eat a Hershey bar, have a burrito, whatever you want to do. I will be back. Or as Arnold would have said, I'll be back. All right, see you in about 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere.